Welcome to the latest episode of Templar Talks. You are joining myself and co-host Todd Doe. How are you doing today, Todd?
I'm knackered, mate. It's been a long weekend.
Yeah, me too. I mean, to be honest, this is going to be a pretty down-turned episode. I have just driven home, so I've been in the car for 3.5 hours. You got, 3 hours sleep on Sunday after the Magic event?
Yeah.
And then straight to work. So it's been a tiring week in general for both Magic events and I think just real life bullshit. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I think we might actually have one more episode of this format left until hopefully we record in a purpose-built location. But
this is the penultimate, is it?
Potentially. I don't know. It's definitely the penultimate of this season of just us, because so we have one more guest podcast for December, which a bit of a teaser. It's Myra from I was about to say Team Ultra Pro. I don't think there's a Team Ultra Pro. Sponsored Ultra Pro Tour attendee, tests with a lot of the Worldly Council guys, all-round great player. So it's a very interesting episode. So definitely be sure to subscribe and check that one out when it comes out. But we will be going into a new season for 2025, regardless of whether we're in a different location or not. But that is the general idea. We want to make this a little bit more easy to, jump in and record. And, for those content providers out there, I think our big thing is that we like to, or content consumers, I guess this message is too, but we prefer to do the in-person thing. I think doing the online is fine, but it's not as, it doesn't have quite the same je ne sais quoi, as it were.
No, we tried, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I think interestingly, actually, by the way, topic-wise, we don't have any topics today. We're going to be talking about the weekend, which went pretty well.
Tale of two halves.
Tale of two halves, indeed. And funnily enough, the fact that you say Tale of two halves, one podcast I think that does do remote recording really, really well, that you won't have listened to, but is The Rest is Football, with Micah Richards, Gary Lineker, and Alan Shearer.
They're just all-round charismatic guys, though, right?
Yeah, Micah Richards or Mika Richards, I don't actually know the pronunciation, but he is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you like his TikTok. There was a recent one, and we're really digressing here from Magic, but there was a recent clip. There's a football team called Brest, and they were covering it on, I think, NBC or something, and just watching his reaction to everything of his co-hosts trying to get him basically fired was absolutely fantastic. Definitely an up there podcast. I haven't. Have you listened to any of the other Resties series? They do Resties Politics, Resties Pop Culture.
No, my podcast listening days died when my commute went from an hour and 10 minutes to 15.
Sure.
And I haven't listened to a podcast since.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, to be fair, I only listen to podcasts in the car. It's definitely keeps you awake at the wheel. Basically, is the purpose. But now you've left and gone to watch any of those other podcasts. Let's have a bit of a chat about the weekend. So, obviously, it was the Axion 10th anniversary.
It was.
It was a really good event. It was held at Edgbaston Cricket Stadium. I will say, not one of my favourite events. Sorry, the event was fantastic. Not one of my favourite venues.
No, I'm still trying to get to grips with it. It's do you know what it is? It's the walk from the main hall to the cafeteria. It's almost like it. And when you tell people, people are like, "Oh, do you know if there's any food around here?" And you go, "Yeah, it's just
fucking miles
just
away.
Go right through about 4 halls," and they look at you like, "Yeah, funny. There's definitely not one down there." And you're like, "No, there really is a cafeteria at the end of those 4 halls."
It's that circular nature, as will always happen if you're renting a stadium, I guess. I've never been to the Twickenham events, but I assume it's similar, rather than that one large.
There's something special about the Great Hall in Birmingham as well, and you drive past it to get to Edgbaston, and you're like, you look left, or depending on which way you're coming through Birmingham, but you look at it as you drive through, and you're like, oh wow, That's
it
cool
is a
venue.
grand building, but like, I can see why it's not used from an event host perspective because it's smaller. And to be fair, actually, criticism of the Great Hall, the bathrooms, like if you're trying to go to the bathroom between rounds, you have to like run down a good 2-3 flights of stairs. I think there might be some other ones like dotted about, but there's not many bathrooms. Whereas Edgbaston is more accommodating in that factor. But I think the big thing as well is because of the circular nature of a stadium or round nature of a stadium, you have to go through events to get to other events. And I don't think you were with me when it happened, but no, it was me, Neil, and Dan went to go get food on one of the days. And we bumped into Liz, but we bumped into Liz in a section of the concourse that was being used for the draft section.
Yeah.
And it was like being in a library. And it was quite amusing as well because they had all the doors shut for sound. And we went to leave and the door like blasted open. And some guy was like, "Oh, it's a fucking safety hazard, that." And it's like, it's... I don't know why they don't keep these doors open. And you're like, it's because fucking be quiet. But like, I think it was the best one at Edgbaston, and I don't think it was even because the weekend went well for us. I think there was something a little bit special about because there was the Lorcana event, because there was the Invitational, because there was the other Magic event all in one. It felt like a bigger occasion.
Do you know what I liked? Because there was a buzz in the room, and there was the like general player base was more diverse, but it kind of took the spikiness out of the Invitational for me, because there wasn't as much of a crowd, and people didn't really know the level of play or the stakes were even there. So it was just kind of a bit more chill, than maybe previous events have been, which have been,
super spiky
and specifically Magic, and people know, and there's benefits to both, right? When we're in Naples and Benton's in his penultimate round, either locking in or not, and everyone's around the table, and it's kind of like it's palpable, and there's electricity in the air. That's great, but also it's not great every round or all the time, or if you're drafting in the Draft Cup, you don't really want a huge crowd watching you. And you didn't have that in the Invitational. They didn't need to move anyone away from the tables or clear the area, which has happened at other tournaments.
I think based on it's interesting as well, because I don't think, and maybe Michael feels differently about this, but from your perspective as entering the Invitational, it didn't feel like quite as big a deal as it was. Like, I think because the previous Invitational, I mean, Michael's been to both, so it'd be good to get an AB perspective, but it's that vibe of, because it was the only thing on that weekend, the whole team were tuning in to every melee round, like refreshing, getting those text updates. There was the buzz of how's it all going kind of thing. Had there been, it's like with the PT or whatever, right? When there's no other event on and we all, when we've got together as a team to watch the PT, there's that buzz of, what's going to happen in this round? Has our friend won or whatever? And I think because it was on at the same time as a massive RCQ, it did lose that perspective a little bit, especially, I mean, from my perspective, day one started really well in that I think I was 3-0 in the RCQ, and by that time, everyone I think had dropped from the Invitational, and equally you've lost that buzz because you've been round to round to round, and then you realise and I think it's the same for honestly, like, I almost preferred day two, even though it went badly for me, because there is that buzz of seeing how the guys are doing, seeing how the team's doing. There's those stakes there. I'm an anomaly in that I personally prefer to stay round. Like, even at RCQs, like 32 player RCQs, if there's a couple of Templar in the final or semis, I'd rather stay an extra hour and see how it goes rather than just shoot home. Because I like that buzz of like who's going to win. The stakes are higher. You know, it puts that extra edge on it, and it definitely didn't feel like that for day one of the Invitational. Like even, you know, the spikier players that were in the Invitational, like I know at Naples and us, you know, Naples is that's the RC you went to, right?
Yeah. Where the only food was pizza.
Yes, yeah. At the RCs, there's that, as you come into that winning in on day one, you're in the last round. And actually, I got this vibe from the chocolate top 8 of the Mega Modern as well. There was that like bit of tension when it was the final of who's going to win. I think at the Invitational, like even really dedicated spiky players, you know, the P9 guys, the Worldly Council guys, the Gathering Point guys, like these very, very, very good Magic players. And when we say spiky, by the way, for anyone listening that is part of those teams, we are saying it in quite a complimentary way. Like we like competitive, spiky play. As long
trying
as
to win, that's what it means.
Yeah,
the players who have put the work in, the due diligence, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to
actually take it.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about it in terms of like sharks. I guess that's how I'd refer to it. If you're a bit of a dick and a bit of a rule shark, you're a shark.
Yeah.
If you're really comp, then you're spiky.
Yeah.
But even they were like kind of just like lean back, laughing around together, kind of like, and it's like you realise who loses this round, you're out, right? Like
I had a similar experience right in the top 8 of the Sunday, in that, you know, there was, I think the quarters really mattered. And then the semis mattered a little bit less.
Weirdly, the quarters was the least important, technically.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the connotations of prizing. But let's quickly talk about the run then. So Saturday, in short, was basically a write-off.
Yes, for everybody.
The Invitational went very badly. I think by round 4 of the RCQ and, you know, round 5, I think it was, of the Invitational, everyone had dropped except me and Neil. I think there might have been maybe one other player, but from our travel, Ray and Kira as well stayed in. It was actually really good. Ray managed to get top 8, which was gas. But the wheels fell off. I think both me and Neil went 3-1 into 3-3 and dropped, which is really irritating. It's one of those things that you just, you know, the matchups don't line up. You don't play as well as you should. And it was just a write-off. Like, obviously, Ray made top 8, which is fantastic. However, it was top 4 qualify. And unfortunately, Ray lost in the quarters. So even for her, it was a great day, but it was also kind of like marred with that little so close.
Yeah, and I remember like London qualifying for the Invitational was a similar experience, in that the quarter final was a really high tension game, because it was, I need to make semis if I want to qualify.
Yeah.
So the
RCQ, not the Invitational.
Well, and then after that, I can remember really fluffing up the semis, because it just, I'd all of the waiting was on getting the RC qualification. And once I got that, I was like, oh, actually, I'm not that fussed about winning the tournament.
Yeah, I do. I really don't like that flat-esque prize structure where there's less tension, or you know, because like semis to finals, I think in that context was nothing, and then winning was the sheet. I think that was the big difference. And then likewise on the Sunday this weekend, and you know, I'm not criticizing Axion here. I think their pricing is crazy. If anything, I think their pricing's too good that you could tone down the you know, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 5th spots. But on the Sunday, quarters and semis were flat pricing. There was no difference at all. So obviously on the Sunday, it was a bit more of a roller coaster. So for me, for who was traveling with us, basically everyone traveling with us that wasn't a Templar, and I don't mean to just throw in a box, but like, you know, who did we have? Dan, Ricky, Neil, Phil, Gammon, like all the guys. And again, if you're watching this and you watch our videos, I do apologise for anyone that gets confused when I call Dan and Rob the Gammon. It's an in joke about both of them being bald. But they're okay with it, so it's fine. I think maybe I don't know.
It's hard to tell with Dan.
It is hard to tell with Dan. He's laughing along, but then you kind of expect the shiv to, suddenly you feel that piercing. But no, seriously, with the Sunday, it was a great day for the Templar, with the exception of myself. Like my day was an absolute write-off. To quickly summarise it, I got paired into Yatka from P9, great player, great guy, who drew hotter than the surface of the fucking sun, like kept to 7 both games, and it was the Dimir Frog mirror. I was morphing my Murktides from Oculuses and milling my kill spells, and he was playing 8 Murktides on turn 2 or 3 or whatever. Like it was one of those.
Yeah. And he's a solid Murktide player as well. I remember him beating me in a Modern for Goodies in a Murktide mirror. Classic, is it Murktide, not Dimir?
Yeah.
But I remember him picking me apart.
Really tight player for sure.
Like, I'm trying to get rid of this DRC, and he'd play a creature, I'd kill it, but the DRC was always there, and I was like, oh, just die, please. Desperately trying to kill it.
But yeah, like, and the rest of my round, like, I then got paired into like just Sky Control or something. Do you know what I mean? It was like all the matchups you kind of
You're there to prey on the aggro play,
yeah,
and just.
My late game isn't as good as Just Skies, and Leyline Bindings are pretty good ways to deal with a lot of the threats being put out. But for the rest of the Templar, it went really, really well. So we can probably skip to round 4, I think, or actually we can even skip to round 5. So I believe at round 5, Will was 4-1, Ed was 4-1, Michael was 4-1 or 5-0. No, 4-1.
4-1.
James was 4-1 and you were 5-0. So actually, going back to the rounds prior to that, James and Michael were still 4-0. Ed and Will were 3-1. So it was looking, and Michael and James avoided each other. So it was looking like it could have been an unbelievable, we get half the top
Was
8
round 5 not when weren't Ed and Michael 4-0-1? 4 and a draw?
No, they were 4-1 and got paired in round 6.
Okay. So
round 4 brought the first friendly fire when Todd got paired into Ed. So Ed went to 3-1, Todd went to 4-0. And then from then on, everyone avoided each other with the exception of round 6. Ed and Michael got paired and took the risky ID. So again, round 5, everyone's 4-1, Todd's 5-0. Really good shot for these last 2 rounds. The next round came. Michael and Ed obviously drew, which is unfortunate. And then, devastatingly, James and Will both lost, and you won. So that was great. You were 6-0, you could ID. The 7th round, similar story. Unfortunately, Ed and Michael and Will all lost. However, Gurney did take it. He managed to beat his star-crossed lover, Dan Rose, in the...
I did enjoy that in the video.
Yes.
There's some sensual moments there.
There are. Find yourself a life partner that looks at you the way that James Gurney looks at Dan Rose, and it is a recipe for a successful relationship. But yeah, so, James ended 5-2. Which got him into the famed chocolate top 8, and you ended 6-0-1. So you ID'd the last round and ended as top seed. So you made it into the top 8. Did you, from your perspective, was that kind of like good day at the office, or did you still want to eat? You know what I mean? Because you get that mentality sometimes of like, I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I was definitely happy because I'd spent the Sunday evening sweating and going, I don't really want to play. The Invitational went so bad. Not particularly even draft. I quite enjoyed the draft experience. Yeah. It was just choosing Goyos and then losing those 2 first rounds just really sets
the tone a little.
Yeah, I don't know if I was on tilt as such, but I wanted to get through the draft to the second portion of Modern, but I couldn't really because I'd started 0-2, so it's just a bit rough. So I didn't want to play at all any more Magic. I wanted to go to Cadbury World, actually, to be honest. And then I went to bed and I woke up and I was like, go on then, I'll play some modern. And then obviously chose Boros. Not a deck that I thought I would do well playing either, just because it had a target on its back. You know, it's one of the decks that every sideboard is prepared for. So I got some pretty favourable matchups, I'd say, a bar the mirror. They were all pretty straightforward. If you win the die roll, you're probably guaranteed. If you don't, you have to work a little harder, but not rough matchups, 50-50. And then being top seed, and when I knew that my matchup was Storm for the quarterfinals, I thought I could at least go to the semis. So I beat Storm, got to the semis. Again, still flat pricing. Like, I'd like it if you won the quarterfinals, you got a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it does take away a bit of the incentive of like pushing past the quarters, unless you're going for something, a qualification or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the semis, I felt a bit favoured as well.
Yeah.
Because I'd already beat my opponent in the Swiss. But I was humble. I was like, this might not go my way. So I tried to play as tight as possible. And like, let's be honest, I spent a lot of the weekend, a lot of the Sunday missing Ocelot triggers.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely, I think those of us that were spectating couldn't believe you lost game 2 of that semi-final based on your hand, the board state. And because that was the game when we're going to be doing a separate video, by the way. This is not we want to position it in terms of Templar Talks as not really getting into the nitty gritty. We'll, for any time we do like a specific deck tech, we'll just do like a 10-minute separate video. But in terms of that matchup, without going too far into the weeds, it was the one where your opponent had one land for like 3 or 4 times.
It was pretty incredible. From where I was sitting and being on the rough end of it, I was like, man, this dude is tearing me up from that one land.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was one of those one landers where you're like, yep, sure.
Yeah.
I get why you keep this.
It was rough for me. I think I started the game with 4 threats in hand, and by turn 3. He had dealt with all of those from one land, and I was like, "Oh man, I need to draw some gas now."
And again, we'll talk about it on maybe the deck tech and kind of tournament report video. But I think honestly, the crucial thing that happened in that game, to briefly touch on it, is because he kept the one lander. Personally, from a spectator's point of view, and I didn't know what he had in his hand, I thought it was so obvious there was a spell snare. So I think you played a 2-drop on turn 2 instead of 2 1-drops, and I was sat there like, no, and he did, right?
See, I was thinking a removal spell, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
I know what you mean.
And it's fatigue, right?
It is fatigue, yeah. Like at the end of the day, I played 3 rounds and then I just like chilled out, right? It was a relaxing day.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, obviously that round did go well. You got through the semi-finals.
And then I'm gassed.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the prize is like, I've gone from 6 boxes of Duskmourn to 6 boxes of Modern Horizons or the W. And let's be honest, I want the W. I want the travel bursary, and really, I want the trophy so I can be. Just on par with Mickey and his result. So yeah, I was really pleased, and I thought I played a really unfavourable matchup to the best of my ability in the final to a very, very pleasant player.
Shout out to Callum. He was every single, again, as a spectator, I got to see a lot of the games that day. The upside of going 0-3 drop. But Callum was pleasant to every single opponent you saw him play, and equally as well, just to credit where credit's due as well. Alexander Gordon Brown from Team Axion. There were many nice players there, but in particular, like those matches that you see the interactions, like true gentlemen, like honestly, like really, really. Great people, because it doesn't mean that you're bad to be pleasant to play against. And I think that's the thing as well. Like having seen Alex play over a huge number of tournaments now. I think it's that backing your ability rather than backing the edge of the spike or the tilting your opponent. And yeah,
all day I thought the level of communication, there was no unpleasant part of the tournaments, any of them as well. The Invitational, drafting was quite a new experience for me. Playing draft competitively is an interesting experience. All in all, it was top tier all weekend, really, like players and communication. And yeah, the final didn't go my way. Gutted I didn't get that trophy. Gutted.
I think though, because and this is a bit of behind the scenes, obviously at the end of the video roundup I said, like, I think you've turned out better, and there was no context for that. But because you guys split the prize, and so the prizes were that first place got the trophy and the bursary, second place got the booster box case and the uncut sheet, and I think second place was actually probably more valuable, if not equal to skewed, than first place. So I think both of you, no matter what, we're walking away pretty damn happy.
I think it was fair either way. And it was a bit of a Callum was on red green Eldrazi, which seems like James was on red green Eldrazi and took the top place in the chocolate top 8 to get his £250 travel bursary, and he seemed to really like the deck. And Kozilek's Return's a hell of a card. I think Kozilek's Return is the thing that really ekes it out as that super good card. And it'll be, looking further ahead, and also looking at the clock, because I'm conscious we're fairly short on time today. It's going to be a shorter episode, but it will be interesting to see how these decks, specifically the stuff that's doing well, like Eldrazi, like Amulet, the good Amulet players that can play it, how are they going to deal without being able to have that 4-mana bullet, take the turn off, regas? And I think it'll be really interesting. For me, there is a little bit of bias because I love the deck, but I do think in particular Dimir Murktide is going to get a fairly significant push up, because it is a deck that tries to go kind of 1-for-1, trade resources, present a threat, and not having a gas my hand back up is pretty good in that kind of scenario. And all in all, I think the Boros games that I maybe won that I shouldn't have done on that day 2 Mega Modern was purely off the back of the ring. I think I got a turn 2 ring
from an Amp Raptor, and that game felt unfair. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. When is the ban date?
December the 16th.
So looking forward to that.
The Templar Talks episode for December with just myself and Todd is going to be probably closer to the the holiday season, so it will be after that ban period. So we'll definitely be going over that a little bit. And
I've missed every guest podcast now since Benton.
You have.
I'm gutted. I wasn't there for the Axion Now one. And I gave it a listen. It was top tier. Wanted to be there, and then I didn't even get to be part of the Myra.
Yeah, I mean, for transparency for those watching, all 3 of those guests, Myra, Francois, and Liz did specify that they wouldn't be in a room with Todd.
Yeah, I think I'm being phased out.
No, I think it's one of those unfortunate ones where if there's situations like in Lille or in Prague, these things do sometimes just fall into place. But we are aiming, for those listening, we are hoping next year to have some more regularity and structure to the guests on.
I was there for Raoul, though.
You were there for Raoul? Yeah. And, I think it would be good to potentially get some of the team onto guest as well, because,
now I want to know what Mikey's invitational experience was.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on that note, as my dog starts to bark, that's a perfect end place. But we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. We hope you can still hear me over the dog. I think he stopped. Maybe. He's very excited. I think my wife's just got home, so yeah.
And we're going to leave, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Play some badminton.
We are indeed. But yeah, do tune in for the next episode. I think as I said, next year we're aiming to have a few more guests on, have it a bit more planned, have some of the team on as well. There's going to be a meet the team video that we filmed back in the summer. It's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks for the end of the year kind of 2024 edition. So obviously you'll get to meet the team in that YouTube video a little bit. Some of the new members.
Formally introduce Will.
Yeah, Will, Ed, and I think they're the only two haven't had a questionnaire, as it were. And I did think, actually, as a bit of a teaser and to spitball an idea, not live on it, but on a microphone. I thought it might be cool to have a bit of a reaction video planned for the start of next year to rewatch some of our the intro videos. So that might be coming as well. We don't know. There's a lot of stuff in the pipes
that are good there.
There's a lot of they were fun to film. But thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in about a week and a half for the Myra episode, and then there's going to be a follow-up in 3-4 weeks for the post-ban. And we'll see what Modern brings us. And I guess maybe we'll have a good update from the first RCQ of the standard season as well. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.